The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Westbrook Academy, casting long rectangles of light across the polished wooden floor of the music room. The prestigious school stood proud in its century-old brick and ivy glory, a place where talented young minds came to nurture their gifts. But for 12-year-old Mei Lin, who had arrived in America just 3 months ago, the school felt more like a maze of unfamiliar faces and customs than a nurturing ground. Mei Lin walked the hallways with her shoulders slightly hunched, her textbooks clutched tightly to her chest like a shield. The lunch bell had rung 15 minutes ago, but she hadn't made her way to the cafeteria. The thought of navigating another awkward meal, sitting alone while trying to decipher the rapid English conversations around her, made her stomach tighten more than any hunger could. Instead, her feet had carried her toward the sound of distant music, a senior practicing violin, the notes floating down the corridor like a trail of breadcrumbs. Mei Lin followed them until she found herself standing at the threshold of a spacious room filled with instruments. The violin player had just finished and left through another door, leaving the space empty. Or so she thought. Mei Lin stepped inside, her worn sneakers silent against the floor. The room seemed to hold its breath, filled with potential sound. Guitars hung on wall racks, a drum set sat in the corner, but at the center of the room, catching the most beautiful stream of sunlight, stood a grand piano. Its polished black surface gleamed like still water. In her old home in Chengdu, Mei Lin had lived in a small apartment where such an instrument would have been impossible to fit, let alone afford. Her father had once brought home a small electronic keyboard from a second-hand shop, but it had broken after a year, the keys sticking and the sound becoming tinny. Still, during that year, Mei Lin had spent hours pressing those keys, trying to recreate songs she heard on the radio or melodies that formed in her head. Now, standing alone in this quiet sanctuary, she felt drawn to the grand piano like a moth to flame. She glanced at the door. Lunch period would last another 20 minutes. No one would know. Mei Lin approached the instrument cautiously, as if it might startle like a living creature. She set her books down on a nearby chair and reached out with trembling fingers to touch one white key near the middle of the keyboard. The note rang out clear and true, hanging in the air like a question. She pressed another, then another, smiling at how pure each sound was compared to the keyboard she once knew. She didn't notice when the door behind her opened and a group of students entered. "What's she doing at Mr. Thompson's piano?" a voice said, loud enough to make Mei Lin jump and spin around. 4 students stood watching her. They wore the same uniform she did, but somehow they made the simple blue blazers and gray skirts look like designer clothing. The girl who had spoken stood in front, her long golden hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, an amused smile playing on her lips. I'm sorry," Mei Lin stammered, immediately stepping away from the piano. You're the new girl, right?" the blonde girl asked, walking closer. Her name was Bella, Mei Lin remembered. She sat 2 rows ahead in English class and played some kind of instrument. Mei Lin had seen her carrying a case. "From China or something?" "Yes," Mei Lin nodded. "I'm from Chengdu in Sichuan province. And you can play?" asked one of the boys, gesturing toward the piano with skepticism clear in his voice. "No, I mean not really," Mei Lin said, feeling heat rise to her face. "I just wanted to touch it. It's so beautiful." Bella laughed, a light tinkling sound that might have been pleasant if it hadn't been directed at Mei Lin's expense. "Do you even know what kind of piano that is?" "It's a Steinway concert grand. Thompson would have a fit if he knew someone was just touching it." "Come on, Bella," said the other girl in the group, whose name Mei Lin didn't know. "Let her try if she wants. This should be good." Mei Lin shook her head quickly. "No, it's okay. I should go." "No, we insist," Bella said, crossing her arms. "Show us what you can do." There was a challenge in her voice, and the others were now looking at Mei Lin with expectation, their expressions a mixture of amusement and curiosity. Trapped, Mei Lin glanced toward the door, but the students had spread out, blocking her easy escape. She turned back to the piano, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. I don't know how to play properly," she admitted. "Just play something simple, anything," Bella prompted, her tone making it clear she expected failure. With no choice that wouldn't result in greater embarrassment, Mei Lin carefully sat on the edge of the bench. She positioned her hands the way she remembered from watching videos online, her posture all wrong. Her fingers curved awkwardly over the keys. She pressed one key, then another, trying to find the beginning notes of a simple Chinese folk song her grandmother had taught her. But her nervousness made her fingers stiff and the notes came out in a halting, disjointed sequence. Someone snickered. Maylin felt her face burning hotter. Wow, she really can't play, the taller boy whispered, not quietly enough. This is painful to watch, Bella said with a dramatic sigh. Maylin's fingers stumbled again, hitting a discordant combination that made her wince. The laughter grew louder, no longer contained to whispers. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. What's going on in here? A new voice cut through the laughter. Maylin looked up to see Ms. Chen, the assistant music teacher, standing in the doorway. She was in her early 30s with short black hair and rectangular glasses that framed her serious eyes. Unlike the other teachers who seemed distant and unapproachable, Ms. Chen had smiled at Maylin on her first day, greeting her in Mandarin and offering to help if she ever needed anything. Nothing, Ms. Chen, Bella answered smoothly. The new girl wanted to play the piano for us, but I don't think she's quite ready for a Steinway. Ms. Chen's gaze moved from Bella to Maylin, who was now standing, ready to flee. I see. Well, lunch period is almost over. You should all head to your next classes. The group of students filed out, still exchanging glances and suppressed smiles. Maylin grabbed her books and made to follow them, head down, eyes stinging with unshed tears. Maylin, Miss Chen called softly, stopping her. Wait a moment, please. Reluctantly, Maylin turned back. She couldn't meet the teacher's eyes, sure she would see disappointment there or worse, pity. I'm sorry, she mumbled. I shouldn't have touched the piano. The piano is meant to be played, Ms. Chen replied, her voice gentle, though perhaps with a bit more preparation first. Maylin nodded miserably, still looking at the floor. Have you ever had lessons? Ms. Chen asked, moving to stand beside the instrument, running her fingers lightly over its surface with evident respect. No, Maylin admitted. We couldn't afford them. I had a keyboard once, but it broke. Ms. Chen seemed to consider this. Yet you're interested in music? Yes, Maylin said, finally looking up. There was no judgment in Ms. Chen's expression, only curiosity. I love music. I listen whenever I can, and I try to figure out how to play songs by ear. Something flickered in Ms. Chen's eyes, interest perhaps. She glanced at the clock on the wall. You should get to class now. But Maylin, if you'd like, you can come to this room tomorrow morning before school starts, 7 o'clock. I'm usually here early preparing for the day. You would let me try the piano again? After how bad I was. Ms. Chen smiled, a warm expression that softened her serious face. Everyone sounds bad at first. Even Mozart had to learn where the keys were. 7 o'clock if you're interested. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period. Maylin nodded quickly, not trusting herself to speak, and hurried out of the room. For the rest of the afternoon, the memory of those laughing faces burned in her mind. She sat through her classes in a fog, hardly hearing the teacher's words, replaying her humiliation over and over. By the time the final bell rang, she had decided she would never go near the music room again. The autumn air was crisp as Maylin walked home, taking the long route through the park. Her family lived in a small apartment on the edge of the neighborhood, far from the grand homes many of her classmates returned to. Her parents would still be at work, her father at the restaurant where he cooked, her mother cleaning houses across town. Her little brother would be at after-school care until evening. Maylin had the apartment to herself, a rare luxury. As she unlocked the door and stepped inside, the silence wrapped around her like a blanket. The apartment was small but tidy, with furniture collected secondhand but cared for with pride. In the corner of the living room, covered with a cloth, sat the old keyboard her father had rescued from the neighbor's trash and fixed as best he could. It still didn't work properly. Half the keys were silent, and the others were out of tune, but Maylin couldn't bring herself to let him throw it away. She dropped her backpack by the door, walked to the keyboard, and pulled off the cloth. Dust motes danced in the air. She plugged it in, though she knew what would happen. The power light flickered weakly, and only a handful of keys produced any sound when pressed. Still, she sat down and placed her fingers on the plastic keys. In her mind, she heard the clear, resonant tones of the grand piano at school. She closed her eyes and began to move her fingers, playing a silent melody only she could hear. In that moment, something shifted inside Maylin. The embarrassment of the day transformed into a quiet determination. She would go to the music room tomorrow at 7. She would learn, and someday, Those who had laughed would hear what she was truly capable of. Mei Lin woke before her alarm the next morning, her mind already racing with thoughts of the piano. She had barely slept, torn between excitement and fear. What if Ms. Chen realized she had no talent? What if those students came early and saw her failing again? Still, at 6:15 a.m. she slipped out of the apartment quietly, leaving a note for her parents explaining she needed to go to school early for a study group. It wasn't exactly a lie, she told herself. She just wasn't studying what they might expect. The school grounds were eerily quiet in the early morning light. A few teachers' cars dotted the parking lot, and the custodian nodded to her as she entered through the side door, but otherwise, Westbrook Academy felt like a different world without the rush of students filling its hallways. Mei Lin's footsteps echoed as she approached the music room, her heart beating faster with each step. When she reached the door, she paused, taking a deep breath before peering through the small window. Ms. Chen was already inside, arranging sheet music on a stand. The grand piano sat in the center of the room, its lid propped open, ready to release its voice. Mei Lin hesitated, suddenly unsure, but before she could retreat, Ms. Chen looked up and spotted her. With a small smile, the teacher motioned for her to come in. "Good morning." "Mei Lin," Ms. Chen said, glancing at the clock. "You're early." "I didn't want to be late," Mei Lin replied softly, clutching the straps of her backpack. Ms. Chen gestured toward the piano bench. "Sit down. Let's see what you know." Mei Lin approached the instrument with reverence. This time there was no audience waiting for her to fail. No pressure except her own desire to learn. She sat on the edge of the bench just as she had yesterday and looked at Ms. Chen expectantly. "First, your posture," Ms. Chen said, coming to stand beside her. "You sit too far forward. Move back, feel the support of the bench. Your feet should be flat on the floor, or on this since you're still growing." She pulled a footrest from under the piano and positioned it for Mei Lin. Shoulders relaxed, back straight but not stiff. Your hands should curve naturally, like you're holding a small apple in each palm. Mei Lin adjusted herself according to these instructions, feeling immediately more comfortable and balanced. "Now," Ms. Chen continued, "show me what you can do. Don't worry about mistakes. Just play something you know." Taking a deep breath, Mei Lin placed her fingers on the keys. She chose a simple melody, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing. With her improved posture and the absence of mocking onlookers, her fingers moved more freely. The notes came out tentative but clear, forming a recognizable tune. When she finished, she looked up at Ms. Chen nervously. The teacher was studying her with an inscrutable expression. "You've never had lessons?" "No," Mei Lin answered. "And you worked that out by ear?" Mei Lin nodded. "I heard my grandmother sing it many times. Then I tried to find the notes on my old keyboard." Ms. Chen tapped her finger against her lips thoughtfully. "Play it again, but this time close your eyes." Confused but obedient, Mei Lin closed her eyes and began to play. Without the distraction of seeing her fingers, she focused entirely on the sound. The melody flowed more smoothly, and when she made a mistake, she corrected it quickly, guided by her ear rather than her sight. "Interesting," Ms. Chen murmured when she finished. "I'm going to play something now. Listen carefully." The teacher sat beside Mei Lin on the bench and played a short, simple classical piece. Mei Lin watched her hands, noticing how they moved with confidence and precision, how the music seemed to flow not just from the piano but from Ms. Chen herself. When the last note faded, Ms. Chen turned to Mei Lin. "Now you try." "But I don't know that song," Mei Lin protested. "Just try," Ms. Chen encouraged. "Start with the first few notes." Hesitantly, Mei Lin placed her hands on the keys and pressed down, trying to replicate the beginning of the piece. Her first attempt was clumsy, but she tried again, adjusting until the notes matched what she had heard. Then she continued, slowly building the melody note by note, guided by the memory of what Ms. Chen had played. After several minutes, she had reproduced nearly half of the short piece. It wasn't perfect, her timing was off, and she missed some of the nuances, but the core melody was there, recognizable and intact. Ms. Chen sat in silence for a moment, then stood up abruptly. "Wait here," she said, and walked to a filing cabinet in the corner of the room. She pulled out some papers and returned, placing them on the piano's music stand. "This is sheet music," she explained. "It tells musicians which notes to play and for how long. Each line and space represents a different note. Maylin stared at the strange symbols, the lines and dots that somehow translated into music. It looked like a secret code. "I can't read this," she admitted. "Not yet," Ms. Chen agreed. "But you will learn. For now, I want to try something else." She played a single note. "Tell me what you hear." Maylin listened, then pressed the same key matching the sound. Ms. Chen played another note and Maylin matched it again. Then the teacher played two notes together, a chord, and Maylin carefully found both keys, reproducing the harmony. They continued this game for several minutes, with Ms. Chen playing increasingly complex combinations of notes and Maylin replicating them by ear. Occasionally she needed a second try, but more often than not, she found the right keys on her first attempt. Finally, Ms. Chen checked her watch. "Other students will start arriving soon. We should end for today." She looked at Maylin with new interest. "You have a gift, Maylin. It's called perfect pitch, the ability to identify or reproduce any note by ear. It's rare and very valuable for a musician." Maylin blinked, not fully understanding the significance of what Ms. Chen was saying. "Is that good?" "It's extraordinary," Ms. Chen said simply. "With training, you could become an exceptional pianist. But it will take work, a lot of work. Are you willing to practice?" "Yes," Maylin answered without hesitation. "But I don't have a piano at home, only a broken keyboard." Ms. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "You can come here every morning and—" She paused, considering. "The practice rooms are open until 5 p.m. Most students don't use them. You could stay after school as well." Maylin's heart swelled with hope. "I would like that very much." Then it settled. "Every morning at 7 and after school when you can." Ms. Chen gathered her papers. "For now, focus on learning proper technique. Don't worry about reading music yet, we'll get to that. Just practice the exercises I'll show you." The sound of voices in the hallway signaled the arrival of other students. Maylin gathered her belongings quickly, not wanting to encounter Bella or her friends. "Thank you, Ms. Chen," she said, bowing slightly from habit. The teacher smiled, a warm, genuine expression that transformed her serious face. "You're welcome, Maylin. See you tomorrow." Throughout the school day, Maylin found herself tapping her fingers against her desk, imagining they were piano keys. In math class, she noticed how the rhythm of equations reminded her of music. In English, the rise and fall of the teacher's voice as she read poetry seemed to follow musical patterns. When the final bell rang, Maylin hurried to the music wing. True to Ms. Chen's word, the practice rooms were mostly empty. Each small room contained an upright piano, not as grand as the one in the main music room, but far better than anything Maylin had played before. She closed the door behind her and sat at the piano, remembering Ms. Chen's instructions about posture. For the next hour, she practiced the simple exercises the teacher had shown her, scales and finger patterns designed to build strength and dexterity. Then, when her fingers were tired but her mind was still hungry for music, she began to experiment. She played songs she remembered from home, worked out melodies from her favorite movies, and even tried to recreate some of the classical piece Ms. Chen had played that morning. Maylin lost track of time, absorbed in the world of sound she was creating. Only when the custodian knocked on the door to tell her he needed to clean did she realize it was past 5 p.m. She walked home with a lightness in her step she hadn't felt since before moving to America. The familiar weight of being a stranger, of not belonging, seemed less heavy today. At home, her mother was preparing dinner while her little brother did homework at the kitchen table. "You're late," her mother said in Mandarin, stirring a pot of soup. "Where were you?" "At school," Maylin replied, setting her backpack down. "I was practicing for a project." Her mother nodded, too busy to question further. "Wash your hands and help set the table. Your father will be home soon." As they ate dinner, Maylin's father asked about school and she told them about her classes, carefully omitting any mention of the piano. Her parents had enough to worry about without adding music lessons to the list. They wanted her to focus on math and science, subjects that would lead to a stable career. After dinner, while her parents watched the news and her brother played with his toy cars, Maylin sat at the broken keyboard in the corner of the living room. She covered it with a blanket to muffle the uneven sounds of the few working keys and practiced her finger exercises silently on the plastic surface, hearing the notes in her head. Her father glanced over, puzzled. "What are you doing, Maylin?" "Just thinking." she answered, quickly removing her hands from the keyboard. Later that night, lying in bed, Mei Lin replayed the morning's lesson in her mind. She could still feel the smooth ivory keys beneath her fingers, still hear the pure tones ringing through the empty music room. Ms. Chen had said she had a gift, something special that most people didn't have. For the first time since arriving in America, Mei Lin fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of music and possibilities. She didn't know yet how hard the journey would be, or how her hidden talent would eventually transform her life. She didn't know about the challenges and setbacks she would face, or the moments of triumph that waited ahead. All she knew was that tomorrow morning, she would return to the piano. And the morning after that, and every morning for as long as they would let her play. 3 months passed like the quick notes of a piano scale. Autumn leaves fell. Winter arrived with its blanket of snow, and Mei Lin continued her secret morning lessons with Ms. Chen. Every day, she arrived at the music room as dawn broke over the school, her fingers stiff from the cold but eager to dance across the keys. Ms. Chen was a demanding teacher. Again, she would say when Mei Lin made a mistake in a passage, listen to what the music wants. Sometimes they would spend an entire session on just a few measures, repeating them until they flowed like water. But unlike her regular school teachers, who seemed frustrated by her still developing English, Ms. Chen was patient with her musical education. She understood that Mei Lin's ear was ahead of her technique, that her mind could hear the music perfectly, even when her fingers couldn't yet produce it. "You're making remarkable progress," Ms. Chen told her one morning in late January, after Mei Lin had played through a simplified version of a Mozart sonata. "In a few months, you've accomplished what takes most students years." Mei Lin ducked her head, uncomfortable with the praise but secretly pleased. "It's because you're a good teacher." "It's because you have both talent and determination," Ms. Chen corrected. "One without the other is useless. But together," she smiled, a rare full smile that lit up her serious face, "together they can create something extraordinary." After that morning's lesson, Mei Lin walked to her first class with her mind still full of music. She barely noticed the other students around her, many of whom still treated her as invisible. Her English was improving, but she remained quiet in class, speaking only when called upon. Some teachers assumed she was shy or slow to learn. They didn't know that inside her head, complex melodies were always playing, that she was translating the world into music. "Hey, piano girl." The voice broke through Mei Lin's thoughts as she stood at her locker. She turned to see Bella leaning against the wall, watching her with curious eyes. "I heard you playing yesterday," Bella continued when Mei Lin didn't respond. After school in the practice room, Mei Lin felt her chest tighten. Had Bella come to mock her again? "Oh," she said, not knowing what else to say. "You're not terrible anymore," Bella said, which seemed to be her version of a compliment. "How long have you been taking lessons?" "A few months," Mei Lin answered cautiously. Bella raised her eyebrows. "Seriously? Just a few months?" She straightened up from the wall. "Well, anyway, I just wanted to say it didn't sound completely awful. That's all." She turned to leave, then paused. "Ms. Chen is a good teacher. She taught me violin for 2 years before she decided to focus on piano students." Before Mei Lin could think of a response, Bella had walked away, her ponytail swinging behind her. It wasn't exactly friendship, but it was the first time anyone in the school besides Ms. Chen had acknowledged Mei Lin's playing as something other than a joke. She closed her locker and headed to class with a lighter step. That afternoon, when Mei Lin arrived at the practice room, she found a folded piece of paper slipped under the door. Inside was a sheet of music, a duet for piano and violin. The next day, Bella was waiting outside the practice room after school. "Did you look at the music?" she asked without greeting. Mei Lin nodded. "I tried to play it, but I'm not very good at reading music yet." "Ms. Chen told me you play by ear," Bella said. She lifted her violin case. "Want to try it together? I'll play my part first so you can hear it." For the next hour, they worked on the duet. Bella was a skilled violinist, her fingers sure on the strings, her bow moving with precise, confident strokes. She was also impatient and critical, stopping Mei Lin repeatedly to correct her timing or emphasis. No, you're rushing there," she would say. "Listen again." But by the end of the hour, they had managed to play through the entire piece once without stopping. It was rough, with several mistakes on Mei Lin's part, but when they finished, Bella was actually smiling. "Not bad for a beginner," she said, packing up her violin. Same time tomorrow? After that, they began practicing together 3 times a week. Maylin learned that beneath Bella's prickly exterior was a girl who loved music as deeply as she did. Bella had been playing violin since she was 4 years old and planned to audition for a prestigious conservatory after high school. "My whole family is musical," she explained one day as they took a break. "My mom is a cellist with the symphony, and my dad teaches music theory at the university. They'd probably die of shock if I wanted to be anything but a musician." "My parents want me to be a doctor or engineer," Maylin confided. "They still don't know I'm learning piano." Bella looked surprised. "You haven't told them?" "Why not?" Maylin shrugged. "They work so hard to pay for this school. They want me to study things that will give me a secure future. Music is," she trailed off, not knowing how to explain. "A risk," Bella finished for her. "Yeah, my parents talk about that too. But they also say that if music is in your soul, you'll never be happy doing anything else." She studied Maylin thoughtfully. "You should tell them." But Maylin wasn't ready. Each morning she continued to leave home early for her lessons with Ms. Chen. Each afternoon, she practiced alone or with Bella, and each evening, she sat at her broken keyboard at home, silently moving her fingers over the keys, hearing the music in her head. February turned into March, and Ms. Chen began giving Maylin more challenging pieces. She was working on a Chopin nocturne when Ms. Chen mentioned the spring recital. "All music students are expected to perform," she said casually, marking a fingering in the score. Maylin's hands froze over the keys. "Perform? In front of people?" "That is generally the definition of a recital, yes," Ms. Chen replied with a hint of amusement. "But I'm not officially a music student," Maylin protested. "I don't take regular lessons like the others." Ms. Chen looked up from the music. "You've been practicing more hours than most of the official piano students combined. You're ready, Maylin." The thought of playing in front of an audience, parents, teachers, other students, made Maylin's stomach twist into knots. She remembered the laughter from her first attempt at the piano, the humiliation of those fumbling notes. "I can't," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Ms. Chen studied her for a long moment. "Very well. I won't force you. But think about it. Sometimes we need to face our fears to move past them." That afternoon, when Maylin told Bella she wasn't going to perform in the recital, the violinist was incredulous. "That's ridiculous. You've been working so hard." "Why wouldn't you play?" "I'm scared," Maylin admitted. "What if I make a mistake? What if people laugh?" "So what if you make a mistake?" "Everyone does. And if anyone laughs, I'll hit them with my bow." Bella picked up her violin. "Let's play the duet. We could perform it together at the recital." The idea of sharing the stage with Bella was both terrifying and tempting. As they played through the duet, now much improved after weeks of practice, Maylin could almost imagine doing it, almost. But the next morning brought unwelcome news. Ms. Chen was waiting for her with an unusually serious expression. "The principal asked about you," she said without preamble. "He wants to know why you're using the music room and practice rooms when you're not enrolled in any music classes." Maylin felt her heart sink. "Am I in trouble?" "Not yet," Ms. Chen said. "I explained that I've been giving you lessons. But if you want to continue, you need to either enroll in the proper classes or demonstrate that these private lessons are worthwhile." "How?" "By performing in the recital." Maylin sat down heavily on the piano bench. "If I don't?" Ms. Chen sighed. "Then we'll have to end our morning sessions. The school can't justify giving you access to these resources if you're not part of the music program in some official capacity." The thought of losing her morning lessons, of no longer starting each day with her fingers on the keys and Ms. Chen's calm guidance, was worse than any fear of public performance. But still, the idea of playing in front of an audience made her hands shake. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course, but the program needs to be finalized by Friday." All day, the decision weighed on Maylin. She was distracted in her classes, earning a gentle reprimand from her English teacher when she failed to answer a question about the book they were reading. After school, she went to the practice room as usual, but instead of beginning her regular exercises, she sat staring at the keys, trying to imagine herself on stage. The door opened and Bella walked in, violin case in hand. "You look like someone stole your sheet music," she commented, setting down her case. "What's wrong?" Maylin explained the situation. So perform, Bella said, as if it were the simplest solution in the world. We'll do the duet. It'll be great, but what if it isn't? Maylin pressed. What if I freeze up or hit wrong notes or… You won't, Bella interrupted. And even if you do, so what? One performance doesn't define you as a musician. It's easy for you to say. You've been playing all your life. You're used to recitals. Bella laughed, but there was little humor in it. You think I don't get nervous? My first recital I threw up backstage. My third recital, I forgot an entire section of the piece and had to improvise. It was terrible. She sat down next to Maylin on the bench. But here's the thing. No one remembers those performances except me. What they remember is how I played last year, or last month. Each performance is a new chance. Maylin considered this. I still don't know if I can do it. Well, you have until Friday to decide, Bella said, standing up and taking out her violin. In the meantime, let's practice. If you do decide to perform, you should at least be prepared. That night, for the first time, Maylin told her parents about the piano lessons. They sat at the dinner table, her father still in his cook's uniform, her mother's hands red from a day of cleaning, and listened with surprised expressions as she described her mornings with Ms. Chen. You've been doing this for months? Her father asked, frowning. Without telling us? I didn't want to worry you, Maylin said. I know you want me to focus on my regular studies. Her mother exchanged a glance with her father. Are your grades suffering because of this? No, Maylin assured them. I still do all my homework. I'm still getting good marks in math and science. Her father leaned back in his chair studying her. And this teacher thinks you have talent? Maylin nodded. She says I have perfect pitch. It means I can hear a note once and play it back exactly. Like your grandmother. Her mother said softly. She could play any song on the air who after hearing it just once. I'd forgotten that. There's a recital next month, Maylin continued, gathering her courage. Ms. Chen wants me to perform. Her parents were silent for a moment. Then her father asked, Do you want to? I'm scared, Maylin admitted. But yes, I think I do. Her father nodded slowly. Then you should. We will come to watch. That simple statement, we will come to watch, filled Maylin with both terror and determination. The thought of playing in front of her parents was even more frightening than performing for strangers. But it also gave her a reason to try, to show them what she had learned, what she could do. The next morning, she arrived at the music room with her decision made. I'll perform in the recital, she told Ms. Chen. Bella and I want to play our duet. Ms. Chen smiled, a glint of pride in her eyes. Excellent. And for your solo piece? Maylin took a deep breath. The Chopin Nocturne. I think I can have it ready in time. I know you can, Ms. Chen said, now from the beginning. As Maylin's fingers found the opening notes of the nocturne, she felt a new purpose in her playing. No longer was she just learning for herself in secret. Now she would play for others, for her parents, for her teachers, for anyone who would listen, and maybe, just maybe, they would hear in her music what she felt when she played. Not just notes and rhythms, but the voice of her heart, speaking in a language that needed no words. The weeks leading up to the spring recital flew by in a blur of practice sessions, nervous moments, and small triumphs. Maylin settled into a new routine. Mornings with Ms. Chen working on the Chopin Nocturne, afternoons with Bella perfecting their duet, and evenings practicing finger positions on her broken keyboard at home while her family watched TV. Her parents, now aware of her musical pursuits, reacted differently than she had expected. Instead of discouragement, they showed a cautious pride. Her father even attempted to fix the old keyboard, replacing a few of the dead keys with parts he found at a second-hand electronics store. It's still not good, he apologized, after spending an entire Sunday hunched over the instrument with tools spread around him. But better than before, maybe. Maylin hugged him tightly. It's perfect, Ba, thank you. Her mother was more practical. If you're serious about this piano, you need proper clothes for the recital, she said, taking Maylin to a thrift store where they found a simple black dress that needed only minor alterations. As her mother pinned the hem, she asked, This teacher of yours, she really thinks you have talent? Ms. Chen says I learn faster than other students, Maylin answered honestly. Her mother nodded, pins held between her lips. After a moment, she removed them and said, Your grandmother would be proud. Music was everything to her before she had to work in the factory. This was new information. Mei Lin had known her grandmother played the erhu, but not that it had been so important to her. Why did she stop? Her mother sighed, smoothing the fabric of the dress. Life happened. Marriage, children, work. There wasn't time anymore. She looked at Mei Lin with an unreadable expression. But things are different here. Different opportunities. At school, word had spread about Mei Lin's participation in the recital. Some students were curious, others skeptical. A few, who remembered her embarrassing first attempt at the piano, made jokes when they thought she couldn't hear. Guess they're really desperate for performers this year, one boy said loudly as Mei Lin passed in the hallway. Bella, walking beside her, whirled around. If you think you can do better, Trevor, why don't you sign up? Oh wait, you tried out for jazz band and they rejected you twice. The boy flushed red and walked away quickly. Bella turned back to Mei Lin with a satisfied smirk. Ignore him. He's just jealous because you've been playing for a few months and you're already better than he'll ever be. This was an exaggeration. Mei Lin knew she still had much to learn, but she appreciated the support. Bella had become a surprising ally, her prickly exterior hiding a fierce loyalty once you earned her respect. 2 weeks before the recital, disaster struck. Ms. Chen called Mei Lin into the music room with a grave expression. Mr. Thompson is concerned about you. Performing, she said without preamble. Mr. Thompson was the head of the music department, a tall, imposing man whom Mei Lin had seen only from a distance. Why? She asked, her stomach dropping. He feels that since you're not formally enrolled in the music program, it sets a bad precedent to allow you to perform. He's worried other students might think they can bypass the regular classes and still participate in recitals. But I've been practicing, Mei Lin protested. I'm prepared. I know, Ms. Chen said, frustration evident in her voice. I've tried to explain the special circumstances, your unusual progress. But he's insistent. Mei Lin felt tears welling in her eyes. After all the work, all the early mornings and long afternoons, to be denied the chance to perform seemed unbearably unfair. However, Ms. Chen continued, he has agreed to a compromise. He wants to hear you play first. If he thinks you're at an appropriate level, he'll allow you to participate. When? Tomorrow morning. He'll be here at 7:30. Ms. Chen placed a hand on Mei Lin's shoulder. Play for him exactly as you've been playing for me. Don't try to add extra flourishes or speed up to impress him. Just let the music speak for itself. Mei Lin nodded, too nervous to respond verbally. That night she could barely eat dinner. Her mother noticed her pushing food around her plate. Are you sick? She asked, placing a hand on Mei Lin's forehead. No, just nervous, Mei Lin admitted and explained about Mr. Thompson's audition. Her father frowned. This man, he doesn't think you're good enough? He hasn't heard me play, Mei Lin explained. He's just following the rules. Rules, her father scoffed. In China, they would be proud to have a student with special talent. They would create opportunities, not obstacles. It was the first time since moving to America that Mei Lin had heard her father speak critically of their new home. Usually, he insisted everything here was better, with more chances for success. I'll play my best, she promised. Maybe he'll understand then. The next morning, Mei Lin arrived at school earlier than usual, her nerves making sleep impossible. She practiced for half an hour in the quiet music room, the familiar notes of the Chopin nocturne calming her racing heart. By the time she heard footsteps approaching, she felt centered, ready. Mr. Thompson entered with Ms. Chen. He was even taller up close, with thick silver hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He nodded briefly to Mei Lin. So you're our unofficial pianist, he said, his voice neither warm nor cold. Ms. Chen tells me you've been taking private lessons with her for several months. Yes. Sir? Mei Lin answered, her voice barely audible. And you wish to perform in the spring recital, despite not being enrolled in our music program. Yes, sir. He gestured toward the piano. Well then, let's hear what you've learned. Mei Lin sat at the bench, adjusted her posture as Ms. Chen had taught her, and placed her hands on the keys. She took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind of everything except the music. The opening notes of the nocturne filled the room, soft and melancholy. Mei Lin focused on the feel of the keys beneath her fingers, on the slight pressure needed for each note, on the gentle rise and fall of the melody. She forgot Mr. Thompson watching, forgot her nervousness, forgot even Ms. Chen. There was only the music, flowing through her like a quiet stream. When she finished, the final notes hung in the air for a moment before fading. Maylin kept her hands on the keys, afraid to look up. "How long did you say she's been playing?" Mr. Thompson asked, his voice sounding different than before. "Since November," Miss Chen answered. "About 5 months." Mr. Thompson made a sound that might have been disbelief. "Stand up, please, young lady." Maylin rose, finally meeting his gaze. His expression was thoughtful, assessing. "You have a gift," he said after a moment. Raw, unpolished, but undeniable. He turned to Miss Chen. "She needs proper training. Not just before school sessions. Real classes, theory, history." "I've suggested as much," Ms. Chen replied. "But there are financial considerations." Mr. Thompson looked back at Mei Lin. "There's a scholarship fund for exceptional students. I believe Ms. Lin would qualify." He straightened his already perfect posture. "You may perform in the recital, both your solo piece and the duet with Ms. Harrison. And next year, I expect to see you enrolled in the appropriate music classes." Relief and joy rushed through Mei Lin. "Thank you, sir," she managed to say. Mr. Thompson nodded, then addressed Ms. Chen. "Fine work, Grace. Extraordinary progress in a short time." With that, he left the room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Ms. Chen's serious face broke into a wide smile. "Well done, Mei Lin. I knew he would see what I see." The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of final preparations. Mei Lin practiced her nocturne until she could play it with her eyes closed, until the notes seemed to flow directly from her heart through her fingers. The duet with Bella improved daily, their distinct instruments, piano and violin, conversing like old friends. The night before the recital, Mei Lin couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, playing the pieces in her head, worrying about every possible mistake. What if she forgot a passage? What if her hands shook too much? What if the audience laughed? Like those students had laughed months ago when she first touched the piano. In the morning, she felt exhausted but too wired to notice. Her mother helped her into the black dress, now perfectly altered to fit her slender frame. Her father, already dressed in his one good suit, awkwardly presented her with a small box. "For luck," he said as she opened it. Inside was a delicate silver hairpin with a tiny pearl at the end. "It was your grandmother's," her mother explained, taking it from the box and securing it in Mei Lin's hair. She wore it for her performances long ago. Touching the hairpin gently, Mei Lin felt a connection to the grandmother she had barely known, the woman who had shared her gift for music. At school, the auditorium was already filling with parents and teachers when Mei Lin arrived backstage. Other performers in formal attire were warming up, checking instruments, or simply sitting quietly with nervous expressions. Bella found her immediately, resplendent in a deep blue dress, her violin case clutched tightly in her hands. "You look like you're going to throw up," she observed bluntly. "I might," Mei Lin admitted. "Don't. It would ruin your dress." Bella opened her violin case and began checking the tuning. "We're going to be amazing. Just remember, if you mess up, keep going. Don't stop, don't apologize, just keep playing." Ms. Chen appeared, clipboard in hand. "Mei Lin, you'll be performing after intermission. Solo piece first, then the duet. How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Mei Lin said honestly. Ms. Chen smiled. "Good, a little fear keeps us sharp." She squeezed Mei Lin's shoulder. "Remember what we practiced. Breathe before you start and play for yourself, not for the audience." The recital began. Mei Lin watched from the wings as other students performed, some confidently, others with visible nervousness. A flute solo, a string quartet, a boy singing with a guitar. The audience applauded politely for each. Intermission came and went. Then it was time. Ms. Chen announced, "Our next performer is Mei Lin Zhang, playing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major opus 9, number 2. Mei Lin walked onto the stage, the spotlights momentarily blinding her. She could make out shadowy figures in the audience but couldn't distinguish faces. She approached the grand piano, adjusted the bench and sat down. For a moment she froze. The keyboard seemed suddenly unfamiliar, the audience's presence overwhelming. Then she spotted her parents in the front row, her mother leaning forward eagerly, her father sitting straight and proud, and beside them, unexpectedly, her little brother, wide-eyed with curiosity. Mei Lin took a deep breath, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The first notes were tentative, but as the familiar melody took shape, she felt herself relaxing into the music. This was what she had practiced for months, what she had dreamed of at night, What she had heard in her head even went away from the piano. The nocturne flowed from her fingers, the gentle, melancholy theme rising and falling like waves. When she reached a difficult passage that had troubled her in practice, her fingers found the notes unerringly, as if they had always known where to go. Time seemed to both stretch and compress. The piece felt both longer and shorter than usual, and then she was playing the final measures, the closing notes hanging in the air before silence fell. For a terrible moment there was no sound from the audience. Had she failed? Had they hated it? Then applause erupted, much louder than for the previous performers. Mei Lin stood, legs shaking, and bowed as Ms. Chen had taught her. As she straightened, she saw her mother wiping tears from her eyes, her father clapping harder than anyone around him. There was no time to bask in the moment. Ms. Chen announced the duet, and Bella joined Mei Lin on stage, violin in hand. They exchanged a quick glance, a silent communication passing between them. "We've got this." As they launched into their duet, the haunting sound of the violin twining with the piano's clear notes, Mei Lin felt a joy she had never experienced before. The pure pleasure of creating music with another person, of being part of something larger than herself. When they finished, the applause was even louder. Bella grinned at her, a genuine, unguarded smile that transformed her usually cool face. They bowed together, then left the stage. Backstage, Ms. Chen was waiting. "Exceptional," she said simply. "Both of you," later surrounded by her family, receiving congratulations from teachers and even some students who had previously ignored her. Mei Lin felt as if she were floating above the floor. "We didn't know," her father said, his eyes suspiciously bright. "We didn't understand how good you are." "I'm still learning," Mei Lin said. "There's so much more to learn." "And you will," he promised. "Whatever it takes," Mr. Thompson approached, nodding politely to Mei Lin's parents. "Your daughter has remarkable talent," he told them. "With proper training, she could have a future in music." As her parents engaged in conversation with the music director, Mei Lin felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Bella. "Not bad for someone who couldn't even play a scale 6 months ago," Bella said with her usual directness, but there was respect in her eyes and something like friendship. "Ready for next year? We should try a more challenging duet, maybe Beethoven." Looking at Bella, at her parents deep in conversation with Mr. Thompson, at Ms. Chen watching with quiet pride from across the room, Mei Lin felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced since leaving China. "Yes," she said, touching her grandmother's hairpin for luck. "I'm ready." 3 years passed like a symphony, moving from one movement to the next. Mei Lin's life changed in ways she could never have imagined on that first day, when she timidly approached the grand piano in the music room. The day after the spring recital, Mr. Thompson had called her parents to discuss the scholarship he'd mentioned. It would cover her music classes, private lessons with Ms. Chen, and even a small stipend for a proper piano at home. Her parents had listened carefully, asked practical questions about what would be expected of Mei Lin, and finally agreed with cautious excitement. 2 weeks later, a used upright piano was delivered to their apartment. It wasn't new or fancy, but it was real, with 88 keys that all worked, pedals that responded to her touch, and a warm, rich tone that filled their small living room. Mei Lin had cried when she first played it, overcome by the simple joy of having an instrument of her own. Now, at 15, Mei Lin sat in the green room of the city's concert hall, waiting for her cue. Today wasn't just another recital, it was the Young Artists Competition, a prestigious event that drew talented musicians from across the state. Winners received scholarship money and, more importantly, attention from conservatories and music schools. "Nervous?" Bella asked, adjusting the tuning pegs on her violin with practiced precision. "Terrified," Mei Lin admitted. "You? Always." Bella had grown taller over the years, her ponytail replaced by a sophisticated updo for performances. She'd become Mei Lin's closest friend. Their initial friction transformed into a bond forged through countless hours of practice and mutual respect for each other's talent. "But you never look nervous," Mei Lin observed. "That's the trick. No one needs to know how you feel inside." Bella put her violin in rest position. "Besides, you're going to win this thing. You've been practicing that Rachmaninoff for months." Mei Lin nodded, flexing her fingers. The piece she would perform today, Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, was far more complex than anything she could have attempted even a year ago. Its thundering chords and lightning-fast arpeggios had once seemed impossible, but Ms. Chen had broken it down, measure by measure, until Mei Lin's fingers knew every note, every dynamic shift, every subtle change in tempo. 5 minutes, ladies, the stage manager called, poking his head into the green room. Mei Lin stood and smoothed the dark blue dress her mother had made specially for this performance. No more thrift store alterations. This was custom-made with love in every stitch. Her grandmother's silver hairpin, now a good luck tradition, gleamed against her black hair. "Remember," Bella said, giving her a quick, fierce hug. "Play it like you own it." Ms. Chen appeared in the doorway. Over the years, her stern demeanor had softened slightly toward Mei Lin, though she remained as demanding as ever in their lessons. "Your parents are in the 3rd row," she told Mei Lin, "and the representatives from Juilliard and Curtis are here." Mei Lin's stomach tightened. She'd known there would be scouts from music schools attending, but hearing it confirmed made the stakes feel even higher. "Don't think about them," Ms. Chen advised, reading her expression. "Think only about the music. Everything else will take care of itself." The stage manager returned. "Ms. Zhang, you're up." With a deep breath, Mei Lin followed him through the backstage area to the wings. She could see the gleaming concert grand waiting at center stage, its lid raised to project the sound to the full house. And now, the announcer's voice echoed through the hall, performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, Opus 23, No. 5. Mei Lin Zhang. Applause rippled through the audience as Mei Lin walked onto the stage. The lights were bright but not blinding. She could make out her parents' faces, her father sitting tall and proud, her mother leaning forward with an encouraging smile. Her little brother, no longer so little at 10, gave her a thumbs up. Mei Lin approached the piano, adjusted the bench, and sat down. The keys gleamed before her, familiar yet intimidating in this grand setting. She placed her hands in her lap, took 3 measured breaths as Ms. Chen had taught her, and began. The opening chords of the Rachmaninoff rang out, forceful and dramatic. Unlike the delicate Chopin of her first recital, this piece demanded power and confidence. Mei Lin's fingers flew across the keys, her small body somehow channeling the strength needed for the thunderous bass notes while maintaining the precision required for the intricate right-hand passages. As she played, Mei Lin's mind went to that first day at the piano when awkward notes had drawn laughter. She remembered the early morning lessons, the hours in the practice rooms, the gradual transformation from halting attempts to fluid mastery. She thought of her grandmother, whom she'd never met but whose musical gift lived on through her. The piece built to its climax, her hands a blur of movement, the hall filled with sound that seemed impossible to come from one instrument, one player, and then, the final chord, resolute, definitive, like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. Silence hung for a moment. Then the audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet. Mei Lin stood, slightly dizzy from the intensity of her performance, and bowed deeply. As she straightened, she caught Ms. Chen's eye off stage. The teacher gave her a small nod that meant more than any standing ovation. Backstage, Bella was waiting. "That," she said emphatically, "was perfect." "Not quite," Mei Lin replied with a small smile. She knew every imperfection, every slight hesitation, every note that could have been better, but close. The rest of the competition passed in a blur. 12 other young musicians performed, all talented, all dedicated. Mei Lin listened to each one, appreciating their skill while honestly assessing her chances. 3 performers in particular stood out. A cellist whose Bach suite brought tears to her eyes, a flautist whose technical precision was flawless, and a pianist older than her, whose Liszt etude was played with both passion and control. When all the performances were complete, the judges retired to deliberate. Competitors and audience mingled in the lobby, sipping punch and exchanging nervous small talk. Ms. Chen introduced Mei Lin to several important people, including a slender woman with silver-streaked hair who turned out to be the head of the piano department at Curtis Institute. "Remarkable control for someone so young," the woman commented. "How long have you been playing?" "About 3 years, ma'am," Mei Lin answered honestly. The woman's eyebrows rose. 3 years? That's unusual." She glanced at Ms. Chen. "She must be a remarkable teacher." "And a remarkable student," Ms. Chen replied, her hand briefly touching Mei Lin's shoulder, a rare gesture of affection. A bell chimed. signaling that the judges had reached their decision. Everyone filed back into the auditorium, the competitors directed to special seats in the front row. The head judge, a distinguished composer, approached the microphone. Before I announce our winners, I want to commend all of today's performers. The level of talent and dedication we've witnessed is truly extraordinary. Mei Lin held her breath as he continued. Our third prize goes to Daniel Kwan for his performance of the Bach cello suite. The audience applauded, as the cellist she had admired made his way to the stage to receive a bronze medal and envelope. Second prize is awarded to Bella Harrison for her interpretation of Paganini's Caprice No. 24. Mei Lin gasped and squeezed Bella's hand. Her friend looked shocked for a moment, then composed herself and walked to the stage with the elegant poise she always maintained in public. But when she accepted her silver medal, Mei Lin could see her hands trembling with excitement. And our first prize, the judge continued, in a unanimous decision, goes to Mei Lin Zhang for her performance of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor. For a moment, Mei Lin couldn't move. Had she heard correctly? First prize? Unanimously. A gentle nudge from the competitor beside her brought her back to reality. She stood on shaky legs and made her way to the stage, where the judge placed a gold medal around her neck and handed her an envelope that would contain a significant scholarship. Exceptional, he murmured, as he shook her hand. We'll be hearing more from you, I'm certain. After the ceremony, amidst congratulations and photographs, Mei Lin found her family waiting in the lobby. Her mother embraced her tearfully while her father stood slightly back, his eyes suspiciously bright. We are so proud, her mother whispered. So very proud. Her father cleared his throat. When you first told us about the piano, I worried. I thought music was not a secure path. He looked at the medal around her neck. I was wrong. Ms. Chen approached, accompanied by the woman from Curtis and another gentleman Mei Lin didn't recognize. Mei Lin, these representatives would like to speak with you and your parents about your future musical education, Ms. Chen said, her usual serious expression softened by a hint of pride. As the adults began discussing pre-college programs and eventual conservatory applications, Bella appeared at Mei Lin's side. Congratulations, she said, her silver medal gleaming. You deserved it. So did you, Mei Lin replied. Second place is amazing, Bella shrugged. This time. Next competition, watch out. But she was smiling as she said it, the competitive edge tempered by genuine friendship. Later that evening, after celebrations and discussions about her musical future, Mei Lin sat alone at her piano at home. The apartment was quiet, her family finally asleep after the excitement of the day. She ran her fingers lightly over the keys, not pressing hard enough to make sound, just feeling their smooth surface beneath her fingertips. 3 years ago, she couldn't have imagined this moment. The medal hanging on her bedroom wall, the conversations about prestigious music schools, the realization that music might actually become her career, not just her passion. She thought of that first humiliating day when students had laughed at her awkward attempts. She thought of Ms. Chen's patient guidance, of Bella's prickly friendship, of Mr. Thompson's grudging respect that had grown into genuine admiration. She thought of her parents who had set aside their practical concerns to support her unexpected talent. Mei Lin placed her hands properly on the keys and began to play, not the competition piece, but a simple melody, the first one she had learned by ear as a child. The notes flowed effortlessly now, carrying with them all the memories of her journey. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars. Inside, the music filled the small apartment, a testament to the truth that sometimes the most beautiful symphonies begin with a single, hesitant note, and Mei Lin played on, no longer the shy girl who had been laughed at, but the young artist who had found her voice in music, a voice that would, in years to come, fill concert halls around the world. But that was a story for another day, another movement in the symphony of her life. For now, there was just this moment, a girl, a piano, and the music that had changed everything.